my darlings tuning in. Happy Valentine's Day. And as a gift, I have a little treat for all of you. Some of my talented friends have offered some stories, past experiences, tales, nothing special, but I personally love listening to stories, particularly in a hot bubble bath, with some candles, maybe a cold drink. Now, I want to be clear that just because you might not have a significant other today doesn't make you any less special. I mean, I know some people like to call it Singles Awareness Day, but honestly, there's a lot worse things than being single. And I hope after this story you might agree with me.
Mask of Love. Every Valentine's Day, I'm reminded that all men are sexist jerks. They remind me of that dickhead Tony who broke my heart when I was 15. It doesn't matter that I'm a lot older now. That fucking bastard. I was able to have my revenge on him. I slowly cut off the face I had loved so much. I keep it with me always. I didn't care that he had a girlfriend. We were meant to be. I just had to show him what he needed. I know what he needed, and every so often, it isn't enough to keep me satisfied. I need more. And I go out on the hunt. When I am like this, it doesn't matter who the person is, because I always hear Tony's words coming through, and I can relive those final moments again and again. The hardest part is finding the right person. He has to fit. He has to be perfect. He has to be white, 5'10" to 6 foot, no one shorter, athletic build, and with the right face. He doesn't need the clothes at first, but don't worry, I have Tony's old clothes. I'll make it work. I always do. They might be a little bloodstained, but they're still good. I make sure they are wearing the clothes, and I cut their hair if I need to, and I always keep some as a souvenir, because there is nothing like a little keepsake. He needs to stick to the script, or I get angry. He has to choose to do it. I'm not a monster, He has to choose it. So I lock him in a cage, naked, with Tony's old clothes. He is, usually the new Tony is told to put the clothes on, and most of them do. A little blood here and there has never hurt anyone. I tell them to sit across me at the dinner table, and they need to tell me how much they love me. I cheat a little. I even leave Tony a note to help him, to tell him the things he's supposed to say. I will start by asking him if he loves me, and they're usually so overwhelmed with love at this point that they start crying, and everyone needs a pointer and a little hand now and then, so I place a knife or maybe a gun on the table. And they tell me they love me, and they follow the scripts that tell me that they want to marry me. I make them wear the mask I made of Tony's skin just to make it real. It's finally happening. I'm so happy. Tony finally loves me. We will live out our dreams together. But they always do something wrong. They're so selfish. Why do they want to get away from me? I have to kill them. They're so mean to me. Maybe this year, all I want is my Tony. And this year, I'm gonna get my Tony.
Well, after that, it definitely seems like being single might be better than dating. At least, if you don't know who you're dating. A fun fact about Valentine's Day. Now, while there are plenty of theories, there isn't really a concrete origin for Valentine's Day. Not the Valentine's Day we celebrate today. And although there are many people that believe it was based on a saint, preferably one that likely married men and women against some royal decree to save the men from war. But there's another theory. There's a theory that back during Roman times, there was a particular festival called Lupercalia. It was a festival about fertility in spring, and it was usually held mid-February, about the 15th or so. Now, that seems fine until you realize that they had sacrifices. Not people, of course. That would, unfortunately, be counterintuitive to the whole fertility thing if you had to kill someone. But they would sacrifice animals. And after anointing 2 men in their blood, they would follow by a feast. Seems a bit dark to consider that as an origin for giving someone chocolates, doesn't it? But then again, I suppose chocolates are just one way to celebrate Valentine's Day.
1 full year. Never before had I seen such beauty. My favorite meal from another time of my life seemed like garbage compared to the masterpiece laid before me. Bon appetit, said the waiter, as he left me to my meal. Charmaine, my soon-to-be future wife, raised her glass.
To 1 full year,
she said. To 1 full year, I reciprocated. We clinked our glasses. Up until the day that I had met Charmaine, my life was all but dead and going nowhere. It wasn't until Charmaine had found me in an alley, a needle in my arm, and presented me a choice. For me, the answer was obvious. 1 full year later, I was healthier, stronger, and more full of life than I had ever been. With Charmaine's support and love, I became more than I was ever meant to be. I became the man that society never believed I could be. I was strong, determined, and unstoppable. I deserved this celebration, and there was only one last thing I sought to claim: Charmaine's hand in marriage. I tapped my spoon to my glass, and a group of men took to the stage before our table. They grabbed instruments and began playing Charmaine's favorite song. Charmaine looked at me with glossy eyes as I rose from my seat and dropped to one knee. I then presented a diamond ring and asked for her hand in marriage. She said yes, and the other patrons applauded. "You've made me the happiest man in the world," I said. "And now for the second happiest moment of my life. Let's dig in." I had waited a year for this meal. Charmaine and I knew I deserved it. We deserved it. We dug in, each starting with a leg. As I took my first bite, I reveled as the blood dripped from my mouth. My fangs tore the smooth flesh from the bone as my blood-red eyes rolled to the back of my head. The band continued to play as the rest of the patrons continued with their meals, losing all manners and making a bloody mess of the restaurant. "Oh, I love you, Charmaine," I said, as my claws dug into the small body laid before me.
"I love you too,"
replied Charmaine, drinking more of the blood from her wineglass. We held hands, and together spoke, "To one more full year."
It is always nice to be able to spend time with those you love. Romantically or platonically. But what about the people that we've lost? What about the people that we loved and either didn't love us back or lost? Is it truly better to have loved and lost than to never love at all? For the pain can be too much sometimes. Even if the feeling of being in love is so sweet and warm, after they're gone, you just feel this dark emptiness inside. Something that haunts you, something that you desperately try to fill, but you never can. But sometimes you wonder, what happened to them? Are they happy? Well, this story is just about that. About a love that was lost. And sometimes it stays lost.
In a rush to work, I had spilled coffee on my skirt. Thank God it was an earth tone colour and wouldn't show. I almost do it again as I bumble into the elevator and frantically push the button for floor 24. A plainly dressed man in a rumpled suit enters behind me and hits the button for 25. Generally, I dislike talking to strangers on an elevator, so I tap at the screen of my phone. Somewhere between floors 17 and 18, a loud crash accompanies an absence of power and leaves us together in the darkness. The only illumination, the screen of my cell phone. It's so abrupt, I let out a startled cry and immediately brace myself back against the wall of the elevator. After the initial shock, I calm myself and figure that I should at least check on the fellow trapped along with me. It startles me when he says, "I'm sorry," in a quiet, softly sad tone. In my stunned state, the pause is long enough for him to continue. "I remember the way the sun shined on your hair, made your eyes sparkle, and the way your smile beamed in the autumn twilight, the way the coffee smelled, the way the air smelled, the way you smelled." With a frown and a furrow of my brow, I realize that the voice sounds familiar. That was one of the happiest times of my life. In all the hours of darkness I've suffered through since that day, a bit of a choking sound comes from the man's throat, haunted me. You just have no idea what it's like to exist in darkness and be tormented by the past. by images of someone you loved. Vincent? Vincent! A syrup chill of terror runs down my spine. I admit that I made mistakes, but I always tried to be a good man. When someone throws a curse on another, well, there are things out there that can hear you, that will take you up on your offer. The doors open, and only a dull grey flatness skews beyond. It provides the barest of illumination, enough for me to notice that the figure next to me is passing out through the doors into the nothingness. I catch a glimpse of Vincent's rotted, desiccated face before the doors slam shut and seal me into darkness. Muffled from the other side of the doors, I hear his voice. And when they do, the loan of pain you take out, they expect it repaid with interest. Goodbye, Vicky.
No, I'm afraid that that's the last story that we have. My bath is getting cold anyway. And these candles have nearly burnt down to the counter. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was nice to just sit back and unwind and listen to things together. And I hope you'll join me next time. Have a happy Valentine's Day, darlings.